The French Revolution, 1789.
The French Revolution. The French Revolution brought a death knell to the aristocracy, nobility, and the clergy in France. Dear children, it is French Revolution which gave us the concepts fraternity, equality, justice, sovereignty, and liberty. We should be very thankful to the founders, the pioneers of the French Revolution, because they who started the concept of social equality. French Revolution was the inspiration for the founding father, the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, to start non-violent struggle against the Britishers. It is this French Revolution which inspired Martin Luther King, who went against the mighty America, condemning the apartheid. This is a lesson of very interesting matter, and here we will be having a very detailed discussion on the factors causing the French Revolution, the course of the French Revolution, the civil constitution for the clergy, tennis court oath, and the clergy being relegated to the level of ordinary citizens. Finally, we will be having a very detailed discussion on a new machine called a guillotine, the directives of the National Assembly, Napoleon Bonaparte's role. It's a great pleasure to know more about French Revolution, because this French Revolution gives us inspiration. This French Revolution gives us a lot of vigor and energy to pursue the goals of social justice. Dear children, now I'll take you through the lane of the French Revolution, where we will see the stories unfolding how the French Revolution started. You know, my children, the French people, the society was divided into three: clergy, nobility, and the peasants. Clergy refers to the church, the pope, cardinals, bishops, and the priests. They enjoyed enormous powers. They enjoyed all the privileges. The pope had absolute control, sway over the king. The next, nobility. The king, the other ministers, the aristocrats, the landlords, all came under this category. The third one, peasants or the commoners. It is very interesting to note that the clergy and the nobility enjoyed all the privileges, suppressing the commoners. The commoners were heavily taxed. They were made to pay taxes in proportion to the production, excess even above the production. Dear children, this French Revolution started with the King Louis XV. Louis XV and Louis XVI spent a lot of money on extravaganza while the commoners were fighting for their bread. People ran without food. People struggled hard for their mere survival, while the king and the queens, they swathed themselves in all the luxuries and delicacies. People were, while starving, these people were enjoying all the pleasures. The philosophers, Voltaire, Rousseau, inspired the people with the concept of equality. People were struggling, and being inspired by the words of these philosophers, they rose against this mighty royal court which suppressed them, which heavily taxed them, and they were waiting for a chance. People were inspired by the American War of Independence. They took leave from the American War of Independence, and all the soldiers who returned from the USA were waiting for a chance to crush the nobility. The clergy, the priests enjoyed all powers and luxuries while crushing the people under their feet. The people hated the church monarchy. Absolute monarchy of the king, absolute control of the church crushed the people, and they were waiting for a golden opportunity. There came the revolution. This French Revolution started when people were finding themselves hard-pressed, unable to bear the cruelty of the queen. Queen Antony was the one who made sarcastic comments about the people's plight. They took the King Louis XIV and the queen, and they were guillotined in the eyes of all the public. The reason? The king and the queen were indulging in all the luxury while the people were starving. This started the revolution. People stormed the prison of Bastille and they released all the prisoners. Revolution caught like a wildfire, spread far and wide, and thereby people became ignited, inspired, and the enthusiasm spread far and wide. The revolution caught the imagination of all the people. All the peasants, all the commoners came together and they fought against the nobility and the clergy. And the culmination was Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte united all the people, and under him a naval administration was there. The power of the clergy was reduced. Civil constitution was introduced for the clergy, and the powers of the kings were reduced. Hence, today's democracy drew inspiration from French Revolution. In this lesson, we will be learning more about the reign of terror. If we read more about this French Revolution, we will have our hearts rending stories how innocent aristocrats, innocent noble people were crushed to death because of the anger of the revolutionists. Hence, we have got two sides of the same coin. One, people wanted to take revenge on the aristocrats, nobility, who crushed them for centuries. At the same time, innocent noble people were taken away because they belonged to nobility. All these and more you will see through visuals.
When France catches cold, the entire Europe sneezes. Monarchical absolutism received a death blow at the end of the 18th century from the French Revolution of 1789. This was a revolt against absolute monarchy and class privileges. It has rightly been said that the dominant forces at work in the social and political history of Europe in the 19th century were the ideas or principles inherited from the French Revolution. There are mainly three: equality, popular sovereignty, and nationality. It is an irony that the French Revolution ultimately led to the despotism of Napoleon Bonaparte. Causes for the French Revolution: ancient regime. The absolute monarchy in France became weak and unpopular during the reign of Louis XV and Louis XVI. They were weak, incompetent, and devoted to extravagance. The unhealthy interferences from queens, especially Marie Antoinette, created confusions and disorder. Bulk of the state's revenue was spent on the extravagance of the court. Ministers and officials were corrupt and dishonest. The state suffered seriously from maladministration. Absolutism. The French system of absolute monarchy was rooted in the divine right theory of kingship. The Church supported this theory. Under this system, the people had no freedom for redressal. The only traditional representative body flourished earlier was the States General. It was a tricameral body consisting of a chamber for clergy, another for nobility, and the third one for the commoners. This was only an advisory body, but that too was not convened since 1614. Another body, known as the Parliament, was entrusted with the responsibility of registering king's edicts. But that Parliament too was ignored by the court. Hence, there was no forum through which the king could gain acquaintance with the people's issues. Economic reasons. Feudalism was decaying. The nobles who owned large tracts of lands practiced absentee landlordism. They left their lands under the care of petty officials and settled in the capital, so as to gain proximity with the king. Their officials mismanaged the lands and exploited the peasants. The nobility were exempted from many taxes and compulsory labor. At the same time, they collected exorbitant dues from the peasants and held tight control over their produce. They could even award punishments to the disobedient peasants. Similarly, 1/3 of lands in France were held by the clergy. They too enjoyed exemptions from most of the taxes. At the same time, they used to collect tithes and other dues from the people. The peasants were thus exploited by the state, nobility, and clergy. The burden of most taxes fell on the peasants. They were coerced to render free manual labor to the state, nobility, and clergy. Dissent was punished with the repressive measures. The French colonies at that time were not prosperous enough to support the French government, and the traditional industries could not make any progress. There were poverty and starvation deaths everywhere. The Catholic Church enjoyed absolute sway over the French society. It registered births and deaths, regulated marriages, controlled education, and determined moral standards. The Church became the owner of vast tracts of land and enjoyed exemptions from taxes, military service, and manual labor. They joined with the king and nobility against the interests of poorer sections of society. Corruption and moral degradation made the Church unpopular.